forest ranger in the heart of Mount Shasta's sprawling wilderness, where shadows weave through the ancient pines and the ground whispers secrets of the past. My discovery of an old, battered VHS camera. I was made to witness things that haunt me, and still in therapy to this very day. You sign up to be a ranger for thrills, but nothing like this horrific event. I found it next to a pile of bones, well off the path, as we were doing a catch and release of a bear that keeps going into campgrounds. It laid next to a pile of bones, human bones without a doubt. The footage began innocuously enough, with laughter and just scenes of hiking and views. A group of friends, young and full of life, documented their journey into the dense forest, unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. Their early moments were filled with joy, but the next scene had me pause and walk away before I could press play again. Sitting in my truck alone, these are the things I wish I had never seen. As the day waned, the forest's picturesque beauty. Panic set in as they realized they were lost, their earlier confidence dissolving into fear. Someone filming was trying to go back to look for landmarks as they were clearly off trail. The night set in, and they decided to set up a fire and camp there, hoping to figure it out in the morning. Yet they did not seem afraid or too worried. It was then that he emerged from behind a tent, camera on a tripod, a figure so drenched in malevolence, he just walked up to the middle of the fire. His mask, almost a copy of the Zodiac, hid any semblance of humanity. "Are you ready to have fun?" His voice, a serpentine hiss, slithered through the trees. "You're my piggies now, and I love squeals." The friends, paralyzed by fear, could only watch in horror as he began his twisted game. "Let's see how great of friends you are," he taunted, forcing them into a grotesque parody of trust exercises, swapping lovers, each one more degrading and cruel than the last. His laughter, discordant echo, followed their every move, making them cheer them on as they cried, wanting it to stop. One by one, he broke them, not just physically, but mentally. He whispered secrets into their ears, secrets that turned friend against friend, unraveling the fabric of their relationships. "You call these people your friends," he mused. "Would your friends do this?" He made one break their finger. The camera captured every moment of their torment, getting close-ups of their pain, filming them inches from their face, the lens focusing on their twisted agony and fear. "Smile for the camera, beautiful," he would sneer. "I'm going to send your parents a copy." His actions were not random acts of violence, but a meticulously orchestrated performance, designed to delve into the darkest recesses of human fear and suffering. You felt as if he knew them before, holding a jealous rage almost. As night enveloped the forest, their screams became part of the nocturnal chorus, their cries for mercy swallowed by the indifferent expanse of wilderness. He forced them to confront their deepest fears, to degrade themselves in a desperate bid for survival. "Fear," he proclaimed, "is the purest form of enlightenment." The climax of his perverse spectacle was a ritual of such cruel intimacy that it seemed designed to not only destroy their bodies, but to erase their very identities. "You are nothing," he whispered, as he forced them to enact violence upon each other. "You know this makes me so happy, watching you beg." The tape's final moments were a study in terror. The camera, now discarded on the forest floor, its lens cracked and smeared with dirt, captured their final moments of agony. Their cries faded into a silence so profound, it seemed as though the forest itself held its breath. And then he spoke, his voice a chilling epilogue to the night's horror. "I can't wait. Sit your families down and watch this," he said, the sound of his footsteps receding into the darkness. "I'll even force-feed them popcorn sweetie." He then turned the camera on him, saying, "Well, I guess that's all, folks." Then started humming the Looney Tunes theme song, dancing over to a female, strapped to the tree tightly. When the screen finally went black, the silence was oppressive, a physical weight that pressed down on me. The darkness of the room seemed alive, teeming with unseen horrors. I realized then that the true terror lay not in the violence inflicted upon the body, but in the annihilation of the soul, in the erasure of one's very essence. The timestamp on the tape was 17 years previous. I had never heard of the story and rushed back to the ranger station to show my coworkers and contact the local police. After showing them what I had to witness alone, only one could complete the tape. Others ran out sobbing, even throwing up. When you sign up for this job, you never expect to witness what we had. I finished out that year, but could never go back again. This is a story I hope even my worst enemy may never have to experience. This has me rethinking camping altogether, especially alone. I hope this serves as a warning, and to always be protective when camping anywhere, as the world is full of psychopathic people. In the summer of 2010, fueled by a blend of youthful naivety and a craving for solitude away from the constraints of society, I embarked on what I expected to be the adventure of a lifetime on the Pacific Crest Trail, PCT. The trail, notorious for its sprawling, untamed wilderness that stretches from the southern border of the U.S. all the way to Canada, promised an escape into the depths of nature's untouched beauty. Little did I know, this journey would morph into a nightmarish ordeal that still haunts my every step, a stark reminder of the darkness that lurks within the heart of the wild. The initial days of my trek were filled with awe-inspiring landscapes and the serene quietude of nature, a stark contrast to the harrowing encounter that awaited me. Deep within the Northern California stretch, near the looming shadow of Mount Shasta, I stumbled upon them. A pair of people, draped in black from head to toe, their faces obscured, standing ominously on the trail. Their sudden appearance in such a desolate expanse sent a shiver down my spine. Despite my greeting, they offered no response, only piercing stares that seemed to bore into my very soul. Unease gnawed at me as I hastily continued on my path, eager to put distance between us. I wish you could feel what I felt right then. As the sun dipped below the horizon, enveloping the forest in darkness, I set up my camp, deep within the embrace of the woods, hoping to shake off the unsettling feeling the encounter had left me with. The isolation I had once sought now felt suffocating, a precursor to the terror that the night would bring. God, this night will never allow me to feel safe again. I went to bed early, hoping to wake up and get an early start. At about 3 in the morning, the tranquility of the wilderness was shattered by the sound of deliberate footsteps encircling my tent. Frozen in fear, I listened as their whispering voices cut through the silence, a sinister symphony that played on my deepest fears. "What do you think they have in there?" the first voice hissed, a hint of malice threading through the words. "Doesn't matter. They're alone. Just do what we did last time," the second replied, their tone laced with a chilling anticipation. Their conversation, though whispered, was a clear declaration of their intentions. I was not merely a passerby to them, but prey, isolated and vulnerable in the vast expanse of wilderness. I had been hunted. The realization that I was the target of their malevolent interest, miles from any semblance of help or safety, was paralyzing. My head began to fill with scenarios of what I should do or what was about to be done. Panic set in as the footsteps continued, a relentless reminder of the danger lurking just beyond the thin fabric of my tent. Then, the most terrifying sound of all, the slow, deliberate pull of my tent's zipper. The barrier between me and them was being removed, inch by inch. In that moment, fueled by a primal surge of adrenaline, I tore through the tent, brandishing my knife into the darkness, screaming into the void in a desperate attempt to ward them off. They were quick, shadows blending back into the darkness from which they had emerged, leaving me alone with the echoing sound of my own racing heart. Then one yelled, "She's alone! Let's get her!" I ran blindly into the night, driven by an instinctual need to survive. The forest around me a blur of dark shapes and no flashlight. I was just running to save my life. I could hear them behind me, closing in and getting closer. Then one of them finally caught me, pinning me down and spitting in my face. I didn't move. I just closed my eyes. Then I scratched as hard as I could straight for his eyes. I stood up and threw the biggest rock I could find right at his head, turning my back to run again, this time not stopping to hide. Dawn brought no relief, only the harsh realization of my vulnerability and the decision to abandon my journey for the sake of survival. I trekked back to civilization, a shadow of my former self, forever changed by the events of that night. The authorities searched, but the forest kept its secrets, offering no clues as to the identities of the pair in black or their motives. I was left with nothing but the haunting memory of their whispers, the sound of footsteps, and the chilling reality of how quickly adventure can turn into horror when you find yourself hunted in the heart of the wilderness. Now, I share my story as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the unpredictable dangers that lie in the pursuit of solitude. The wilderness, for all its beauty, harbors shadows where terror dwells, waiting for the unwary. 20 years have passed since the night Mount Shasta ceased to be just a mountain for me and became the stage for an encounter that twisted the very fabric of my reality. As a child of 10, my anticipation for our annual family camping trip was laced with innocence and excitement. The wilderness around Shasta promised adventure, a respite from the mundane world. Little did I know, it harbored shadows, thirsty for the naivety of visitors like us. The day waned into evening, painting the sky in shades of fire and twilight as we settled into our camp. The serenity was a masquerade, shattered when an impenetrable darkness engulfed the stars. A colossal craft, silent as the void from which it emerged, descended, its presence an oppressive weight on my chest. Before I could scream, I was enveloped in an abyss, spirited away from the warmth of the campfire to the cold, unyielding interior of an alien ship. The environment inside was antithetical to life as we know it, a sterile, metallic labyrinth where the air was thick with the scent of ozone and fear. The entities that dwelled within were a grotesque parody of biological evolution. Their towering forms were draped in skin that seemed to absorb light, eyes, bottomless pits of malice. They communicated not with words, but with a cacophony of mental intrusions, images, and sensations that flayed the mind, stripping it bare of sanity. I wasn't alone in my ordeal. Other children, each a mirror of my terror, were corralled like cattle into chambers designed to dissect and desecrate the sanctity of our beings. The experiments we endured were a symphony of agony. Devices that pierced flesh and bone, chemicals that seared veins, and fields of energy that tormented the psyche were our relentless companions. The aliens, impassive observers to our suffering, cataloged each response, each shiver of pain, with clinical detachment. Back on Earth, the night was a tempest of activity. My parents, engulfed in a nightmare of uncertainty, rallied the authorities, igniting a search that spread like wildfire through the community. The forest around Mount Shasta, usually a bastion of tranquility, echoed with the roar of helicopters and the desperate calls of search parties. Yet, for all their efforts, I was beyond salvation, trapped in a dimension of torment that defied their understanding. The purpose behind the experiments remains a mystery, their methods arcane. One particularly harrowing procedure involved the manipulation of time. My consciousness stretched thin across moments and millennia, forced to endure the eons and seconds. Another tested the limits of the human mind's ability to withstand isolation, plunging me into a sensory void where the concept of self began to unravel. When they had finished with us, I was discarded back into the world from which I was taken, a shell of the child I once was. The reunion with my family was a hollow victory. My return marked not by joy, but by the onset of a terror that would haunt us all. The memory of my abduction is a poison, leaching into every moment of happiness, a constant reminder of the darkness that lies in wait beyond the stars. My parents, witnesses to the aftermath of my encounter, fought to reconcile the son who returned with the one they lost. The search parties disbanded, the authorities baffled and skeptical, leaving us to grapple with the truth of what occurred in the shadow of Mount Shasta. The years that followed were a journey through landscapes of fear and madness. Nightmares, where the experiments continued, became my reality, the entity's whispers, a chorus in the darkness. The scars, invisible to the eye, were etched deep within my psyche, a roadmap of trauma that charted my descent into a world where the line between the real and the unimaginable blurred. Mount Shasta, once a symbol of natural majesty, now stands as a monument to my torment, a sentinel guarding the threshold between our world and the horrors that lurk in the void. The truth of what happened that night, of the beings that dwell in the darkness and the depths of human endurance, is a tale whispered in fear, a warning to those who would venture into the unknown. In the shadow of the mountain, the silence speaks, a voice born of the stars, calling me back to the darkness from which I barely escaped.